Okay, thank you guys so much for joining me and for your patience this evening. My name is Christy Poe, and I'm a board member for FORR Frankfurt, which is focused on race relations Frankfurt. The purpose of our organization is to introduce, welcome, start open and honest communications and conversations about race and race-related issues here in Frankfurt and Franklin County. We understand that this is an uncomfortable topic. Our goal is to make this an uncomfortable topic comfortable so that we can work together to try to solve some of the issues that we're having. So we just want to thank you very much for agreeing to participate in this forum that we had to cancel due to COVID-19. I'm going to get started with some introductions. We'll start with Jason, then Lane, then Tommie. Jason, you are up.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jason Keller. I'm a U.S. Army veteran, and I've been actively involved in some of these discussions, locally over the last few months, but elsewhere, like in St. Louis after the events in Ferguson. It's something I deeply care about, and I also want to fully admit in a message that I truly want to share with other folks that may look like me that are struggling to get engaged in this conversation. It was said by, of all people, Newt Gingrich, that the Caucasian community in the United States can only hope to truly understand what the members of our African American community have gone through, and we have to start the conversation with that understanding. And I'll be aggressively moving forward to have as many local conversations as we can to try to break down systemic bias in our community. And I'd like to say that I'm the only candidate that's released a strategic plan of how we're going to address those issues after I'm elected. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, Lane, we'll go to you.
All right, thanks for having us, and this is a great opportunity. I know this was already scheduled, but the timing right now couldn't be more appropriate. And I will say that, back in January when I announced my candidacy, I never envisioned that a campaign season would look like this. 2020 is turning out to be a year unlike any other. 2 months ago was the pandemic, and now we have arguably racial relations, and the civil unrest has now moved to the forefront. And Frankfurt has an opportunity right now, and as they did in January, because there is not an incumbent mayor on the ballot. We have an opportunity to elect someone that's a new kind of leader, someone with a fresh perspective. And I feel like somebody that is a native of Frankfurt, that has the pride of the community, somebody that grew up here, but has also lived away in other places and seen an outside perspective. I think that's important. And I chose to move back about 15 years ago, for those that don't know, and start my business here as a financial planner and to raise my family here. And I think my financial expertise is going to be critical to get us through this immediate COVID-19 crisis. But my vision to make Frankfurt a more prosperous and desirable place to live for everyone, not just your background, but all different types of ages, that's going to be critical in the long run too.
Thank you so much. And Tommie.
First of all, I want to thank you for setting this up. Focus on race relations is a top key. And we've talked about the things that are important. And of course, we know the drug thing is a problem. We know the race thing is a problem. And it's one of those that nobody wants to talk about it. Some people said that we've been kind of put on, we've been awakened. We didn't awaken, we just pushed the snooze button. My name is Tommie Haynes, and I'm running for mayor of the city of Frankfurt. I feel what I bring to the table is leadership, achievement, and service. I think the leadership has shown in the past, and I think anybody that wants to know what a person will do in the future, all they have to do is look and see what they've done in the past. I've had the opportunity to serve in the military for 20 years, retiring as a major. I had the opportunity to compete for the United States Olympic team and was selected co-captain of that team. As a matter of fact, I was captain of every team I've ever been on ever since high school. It was one of those, and coming up with achievement, once you put yourself in that opportunity in that arena, you got to show that you can compete. And it's one of those, I always say that the best will come out of you. A guy by the name of Arthur Ashe made the statement that the key to success is competence, and the key to competence is preparation. I feel very prepared to take on this role as a mayor, and I look forward to it. God bless you. God bless Frankfurt.
Thank you so much. All right, so we're going to get started with our first question. Again, I'm going to start with Jason. Jason, the first question this evening, Many across the country are urging that police departments be defunded. What is your understanding of this movement, and do you think it has merit for Frankfurt?
Okay, so let's be clear. The vast majority of people that are talking about defunding police departments are not talking about getting rid of police departments. They're talking about a policy change issue, and something that I have 15 plus years of experience working on. We're talking about moving away from strictly enforcement to starting to aid the communities that are most affected by law enforcement and sentencing issues, the fact that we are, vastly housing African Americans in prisons instead of safe homes and communities. I could go on. So we just have got to get past this quote unquote, argument that so many people in certain circles of their community are using to try to say that communities of color are saying to get rid of law enforcement, hands down. They're not. They're looking for a strategic change in direction and in leadership for how we police and how we solve these societal issues that result in crime across our nation. I've worked on these issues with the Department of Homeland Security, the ATF. I've worked on them in communities from Oakland to Washington, D.C. to right here in Frankfurt. And, I really think that this is a great topic to bring up in this conversation because it's the type of propaganda that's being used against creating meaningful change in our communities. And I just want to openly say that and openly encourage folks to do their research and to truly understand these things. And as folks have realized, if they have any questions, to reach out to me and I will help explain those things based on the years of experience that I have in developing this type of policy and change for how we combat crime, but also address systemic issues in our community.
Okay, thank you so much. And Lane, I'll ask you the same question. Many across the country are urging that police departments be defunded. What is your understanding of this movement, and do you think it has merit for Frankfurt?
Well, I think defunding, again, is not, I don't think that what people mean is abolish the police force. I do think that people understand we do need some type of security force and protection for people's property and their life and their rights. So I do think that, I don't know if they mean abolish the police force. And even communities that have abolished it, they really restarted it, but just under a different format. And I think what people mean is reimagining the police force. And I think that has merit in that I think we do ask our police officers to do too much. We do, not only are they, we're asking them to protect us from violent offenders, but also to patrol traffic incidents and the traffic controllers. We're asking them to step in mental illness and homelessness issues in a way that we're asking them to be social workers as well. So I envision it as having maybe unbundling it in some senses where we have different divisions. Maybe there's a traffic controller where if you have a busted taillight, I don't think you need an armed police officer pulling you over because that only it can only escalate from there. And I don't think we need to put either citizens or police officers in that situation. I think so. We could have a separate division for trafficking and also a separate division and put more dollars behind social workers to help our homelessness population and those with mental illness, because that's a real concern. And then drugs is another part of that too, where we need to focus on treatment and less on enforcement. Now, of course, we need to go after the dealers, those that are really trafficking in drugs, but those that are just using drugs, we need to focus on limiting the demand and focusing on the treatment. So we need to focus on community policing, and technology is going to be a big part of this in the future, where police officers won't have to put themselves in certain situations like they do now. So we do
that was your time, just to let you know.
Okay, and that's what I envision, a reimagining, not a defund.
Okay, thank you so much. Tommie, pardon, same question. Many across the country are urging that police departments be defunded. What is your understanding of this movement, and do you think it has merit for Frankfurt? Uh-oh. And we lost Tommie. Let's see if we can get him back in. That was perfect timing, wasn't it? I mean, that was perfect timing. Let's see if he can. Okay, so we had some brief technical difficulties and we lost Tommie Haynes visually, but we do have him connected by audio. So I will ask the question again to Tommie Haynes. Many across the country are urging that police departments be defunded. What is your understanding of this movement, and do you think it has merit for Frankfurt?
Okay, I'll answer the last part first. No, it does not have merit for Frankfurt. I can understand with some of the activities that have happened across the country that people would think that that will be the way to succeed, and that is not the way to succeed, because what we need to do is look at the actual policies and things that are happening to people. The policemen and all of our forces, they're supposed to protect and serve the community. And what we need is more community serving, like community policing. We need people to do those kind of jobs, because that's why it's good to have people that live in your community to be on these law enforcement areas. Also, one of the things we do have to do, we have to have our workforce in the, like the police department, to look more like our community. So we do need to go on a recruitment effort to try to get some people of color, so that people they see that it is a job and they have to do that job. Another thing, they need to be transparent. It's one of those that sometimes people are getting where they don't trust police officers, because when you see stuff on TV, it appears that you could be taken down, hurt, killed, whatever, just because the basis of your color, you're treated different. And that just cannot happen. And I thought things had gotten better, because I came through the 60s when we had similar type problems. But the way you correct those is you change the policy, you change the rules, and you enforce those. And if you do that, things will work very well. I had the opportunity to complete the civilian police department training, and also the civilian Kentucky State Police Department. It actually walks through how they recruit, how they use the weapons, and that weapon, using a weapon, that deadly weapon should be the last result, not the first result. And it definitely shouldn't want to come out. You have so many other things that you can do prior to actually using a weapon. So no, I do not believe that should happen. I think the policemen here are well trusted right now, and we need to maintain that trust.
Okay, thank you so much. And again, that was Tommie Haynes. We've lost him visually, but he is the phone number in the corner, so he is present. Thank you so much, Tommie. We're going to move on to the second question. I started with Jason. We'll start with Lane this time. Lane, research has shown that even well-meaning people harbor racial biases. What ideas do you have for dealing with that among city employees and commissioners?
I think having a top-of-mind mentality is the first step. I think it's better now than it was 50 years ago, but better isn't necessarily good enough. I do think that the younger generation, and I think about my daughters too, who aren't, they're young. I think they don't notice as much as we notice it. But I do think that we need to make training for those that are already in the workforce a priority, to point out situations where they may not understand that there's systemic racism. You may not understand that there is, but if you point it out a certain way, and you see it on Facebook now, people show, they share videos, concepts, and you see it a different way, then you understand it. I think we're past the days of a lecturer up in front of everyone saying this is what racism is. It's beyond that now. I think with technology these days, we can tell the story better. And I think the narrative is changing. And I know it doesn't feel that way now, but I'm optimistic that with the newer generation that's coming in, and plus like with kids my daughter's age, they don't see it like we see it. So I think there's so much more we can do, obviously, but we need to instill that in the city of Frankfort's workforce, and that the mayor can control.
Okay, thank you so much. And Tommie, you're next for this question, Tommie Haynes. Research has shown that even well-meaning people harbor racial biases. What ideas do you have for dealing with that among city employees and commissioners?
Well, first of all, we have to have these face-to-face conversations where you actually talk about it, you acknowledge it, you discuss it, and then talk about different appropriate actions that can be taken. I would probably start off with small groups working, the education, the job opportunities to businesses, because they have a lot of ideas. But one of the things I think that we cannot afford to miss, we definitely need to incorporate the youth voices in city government. And I'm one of those that want to start a Frankfort Youth Advisory Team, which represents people from KSU, the public and private schools, and homeschool students. Because the diversity of our communities should be represented at all stages, so all voices are heard. And I think that's the only way we can get to the bottom line, because things have changed. And the young people that are coming up, one of the last peaceful marches I saw was a whole bunch of young people, and it was very diverse, and they just had certain points. And I agree that people are not ready just to be lectured to. They want to see what can they do, and they say see and say something, then do something. And I thank them for that energy.
Thank you so much. Okay, and Jason, same question. Research has shown that even well-meaning people harbor racial biases. What ideas do you have for dealing with that among city employees?
Yes, so I have a plan to look at this from across the entire community, from the city government to healthcare, to anything else. And the list could be a mile long, so I don't want to harbor too much on that. But at the end of the day, I think we need to take the data that we see at a national and state level and say, this is likely where we're going to find bias in our policies, in the actions of our city government, and so on. And then we put together teams of hopefully willing members of our community, representatives of businesses, and so on. And then we are going to start looking at their data and try to identify, does this particular bias exist in this institution, whether it's how we're prosecuting in our population? Is that adversely affecting minorities? Are Caucasians being treated differently than people of color, and so on? In the healthcare industry, we can bring up our general practitioners all the way to representatives of Frankfort Regional Hospital, and we can start to say, hey, these are the things that we're seeing. This is what happens when a person of color walks into an ER. This is how they're being treated differently than others. Is this something relevant in your organization? And then we start to assign people to work with those organizations and truly start to come up with changes that can address these issues. If we're going to bring down hundreds of years of racial discrimination, it's gonna take some work. And so that's the process that I want to institute there. And then from there, myself as mayor and other city leaders, we're going to reach out to state level agencies and other communities, and we're going to encourage them to do the same thing. Because guess what? I want the citizens of my city, when they're traveling or interacting with other organizations, I don't want these biases to exist there either. So we're going to attack these things from the ground up, and we're going to make sure that Frankfort is a leader at addressing these issues at every level of government.
Thank you so much. All right, and we are moving on to the last question. Lane, I did give you a chance to answer that question, correct?
Yes.
So, okay, sometimes I get confused. Okay, Tommie Haynes, we are starting with you first for the last question, okay?
Okay.
How do you define systemic racism, and do you think it exists in the city of Frankfort and Franklin County?
I would define systemic racism as any system that's set up that actually gives favoritism to one person based on color, age, ethnic groups, And also, that's just a general description of systemic racism. It also had to be around a while to become a system. It can affect things such as your economic, your social, and the one that we see most often are the overt racism, such as, when they're taking out some of the statutes and stuff, is because it's been a history. And the history is good to keep, but it's not good. It needs to be in the right perspective. I was really, my heart hurting when somebody did an emphasis of the governor hanging. I don't care who's in office. That's not appropriate. And for this time frame, that just brings back old stuff, old memories that we were hoping that was gone. And it's one of those also, if you have a system that it seems like it keeps holding down certain people all the time and it doesn't change, there's something wrong in the system. Either the policies are not being followed and leadership comes from the top. And there's no place for it. And I think in Frankfurt, it's been a decent job done, but there is work to do. And I'm looking forward to being mayor so I can walk around and actually see where we can make much progress. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, and we'll take the same question to Jason next. How do you define systemic racism, and do you think it exists in the city of Frankfurt and Franklin County?
So systemic racism is both the present day actions of individuals that are trying to break down African Americans' right to vote and so many other things, but it's also the just dearth of hundreds of years of laws and policies that were meant to target African Americans. Many people will tell us today, for instance, that there are more segregated schools in our modern society than there were during the height of Jim Crow. And that is a tragedy. But those things came from politicians and processes and policies that were instituted after we broke down the legal definitions of racism and opened up the right to vote and others. And now there are more subtle ways of how our nation essentially, again, at all levels of government, is just blatantly attacking members of our community of color. And it's also the less intentional things, the things that we hear day to day in pop culture that makes the doctor believe that the African American member of our community that walks into the ER is just there to get drugs, not that they have a valid health care issue. And those things are endemic. I've read so many things that just, they weigh on my heart. Black women are less likely than white women to receive radiation therapy as it relates to breast cancer and when they're having a mastectomy. Black patients suffering from psychological issues are given drugs that white people are not. I mean, it's through and through. And again, as I identified, we have to attack this at all levels if we're going to make meaningful change. This cannot just be basic changes in who we hire and things along those lines. It's true action to break down systemic injustice.
Thank you so much. Okay. Lane, same question. How do you define systemic racism, and do you think it exists in the city of Frankfurt and Franklin County?
I think systemic racism is, it's part of the entire system and not necessarily the result of individuals' beliefs. I feel like that you may have an entire city that's not racist, but if the system is set up so that it's going to skew the results one way or another, that's systemic racism. If you look at it, I think it exists everywhere, including Frankfurt. I think Frankfurt's not as bad as a lot of other places, but it exists here. If you look at just nationwide, if you look at the income disparities between the black and the white, and if you look at the incomes, I think I just saw something last week, for every dollar a white household owns, a black household earns 59 cents. And it's that way across assets, retirement plan savings. I'm in the financial services businesses, so I see this. If you look at 401k participation, it's 33% for blacks, it's 59% for whites. It's just everywhere you look. That's household ownership, it's education, it's life expectancy. So it's ingrained in the system. So it is here in Frankfurt. I don't think it's as bad here in Frankfurt, but we do need to look at, where are we going to have the biases and try to address that from the top down. And one thing we can do is look at, as a city, making the city directory look more like the representative of the community. And that includes not just hiring and recruiting and retaining and promoting minorities, but not just for entry-level positions, but for leadership positions as well. And that's one thing that the city can do, and just raise awareness where they can.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, this is now the time of the evening where we allow you guys to close out, say a few things. We ended with Tommie, so Tommie Haynes, we're going to start with you this time. If you want to go ahead and close everyone out this evening, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you, Christy, and the Focus on Race Relations Committee for just bringing up this subject in such a timely manner. I'm Tommie Haynes, and I believe that my strength lies in the area of leadership, achievement, and service. The value added would be having the confidence to seek solutions to difficult problems, fostering a harmonious working environment, and also respecting the Frankfurt City manager form of government. I feel my experience, my qualifications, and how committed I am will make me the best mayor here and maybe in this state. My platform will be transparent. I come in with a positive attitude, and I do ask for your vote on election day. If you need more information on me, please go to TommieHaynesForMayor.com. And again, I thank you all, and God bless you.
Thank you so much. And we'll go to Jason next.
Yes, again, as Mr. Haynes said, hey, thank you all for putting this together. I hope that this is something that we can make a regular part of our community. We have got to start taking a proactive strategy to break down these issues locally and statewide. We can't just take down a statue of a traitor after decades of people begging to make these kinds of changes. We have got to move forward with a broad, aggressive plan to break down systemic racism in our community. That's why I've declared that Frankfort, Kentucky needs to pursue being the #1 city in the United States for creating new Black-owned businesses, so we can start to bridge that wealth gap in the African-American community. That's why I've submitted a plan to attack systemic racism at every level of our government and our society. And I want people out there that feel like they've been forgotten by this city to know that they have somebody who's going to come out there and fight for them, like I did in the military, like I did working in government and elsewhere. This is going to require bringing together our entire community, and I believe that I'm the right candidate that's going to get things done now, not 20 years from now. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll end with Lane.
All right, well, I appreciate you all having us on this, and you all have had a couple of fantastic events that I've been to in the last couple of years, and it is important right now. Like I said before, Frankfurt's in January, it was at an important time in Frankfurt's history, and now here in June, it's even more important now. We have an opportunity to elect a new mayor, and I believe somebody with a fresh perspective that has the financial expertise to see us through the immediate crisis of COVID-19, but then also I'm a native of Frankfurt. I have the pride in the community. I've lived elsewhere. I have the outside perspective. I chose to move back here to build my business here and to raise my family here. I've been active in the community and serving in various leadership roles of nonprofits, as well as fixing up buildings around town that are in need. And I do that because I want to make Frankfurt a better place to live. And my goal is to make Frankfurt a more prosperous and desirable place to live for everyone. And we do that by making the living experience here better than any other place in the state. And that's quality of life issues. It's better jobs. It's improving the safety of our neighborhoods. It's addressing the race relation issues. It's improving our schools. and it's making this the most welcome community in the state. So I urge you to consider me. If you haven't voted already by the time you watch this, consider me on the mayor's ballot. I'm the first position, and you can go to laynewilkerson.com. That's LAYNE Wilkerson.com if you want to learn more. Ask for your vote, and thanks for having me tonight. Thanks.
Thank you guys so much. I do just want to thank you on behalf of FORR, also Together Frankfurt, which I hate that I hadn't mentioned them earlier because they did want to be a part of our candidate forum when we were going to do it live. So we just want to thank you. It takes a lot of courage to have these conversations that are open and honest about race and race-related issues. So we appreciate the fact that you were willing to come onto our forum and discuss these things with us, and especially with all of our technical difficulties this evening. So thank you guys so much, and good luck.